It was another long and demanding day on the campaign trail for Donald Trump. His schedule was packed with rallies, speeches, and press conferences, each requiring his full attention. But this rally, held in a bustling city, felt different. The air was thick with excitement, buzzing with anticipation. The crowd was eager, their faces lit up with hope, and there was an energy about the event that Trump couldn't ignore. It felt almost electric, as if the moment was charged with something bigger than just the typical campaign buzz. For Trump, every rally was a chance to connect with his supporters, to remind them of the progress he'd promised, but this time, something in the air felt different. He couldn't quite place it, but it was there, lingering in the atmosphere. A sense of destiny, perhaps. As Trump walked through the backstage area, his team made final adjustments, preparing for his entrance. The place was alive with activity, campaign staff coordinating logistics, security keeping watch, reporters darting in and out. But none of this registered in Trump's mind as he prepared for what would be the highlight of the day, the rally. His mind was elsewhere. A million thoughts swirled through his head, each demanding attention. He knew how much was riding on this rally, his momentum, his supporters' loyalty, his reputation. But beyond that, it was the people who kept him coming back. They were why he did it, why he showed up, why he worked tirelessly to keep them engaged. He saw their faces in the crowd, and they were a mirror of his own ambition, his own vision for America. When he finally took the stage, the roar of the crowd was deafening. The sea of red hats and eager faces cheered and chanted his name. Trump raised his hand, signaling for silence, but the crowd's energy was contagious. He smiled, soaking in the adoration and the power that came with being the center of attention. In these moments, he could feel the weight of the room. It was a feeling he thrived on. It was a reminder that all of this, his wealth, his fame, his influence, was real. He had built it. And in return, they built him up, like an idol to be worshipped. But amid the sea of faces, something caught Trump's attention. An elderly man standing alone at the edge of the crowd. His clothes were worn, his hair gray and thin, and his posture was hunched with age. He was out of place, a stark contrast to the energetic, youthful supporters surrounding him. The man didn't seem to belong, and to Trump, who was already feeling the weight of the event, the sight of the elderly figure in the crowd grated on him. His presence stood in stark contrast to the enthusiasm of the moment. Trump couldn't help but wonder, what is this man doing here? Is he here to cheer for me, or is he just a spectator? Trump's gaze lingered on him for a moment too long. A sharp irritation began to stir within him. Why is he standing there like that? Doesn't he know this is a rally for real Americans? The thoughts rose unbidden, sharper and more critical than he intended. His mouth went dry as he continued to stare at the man. His brain caught in a brief but uncomfortable loop of judgment. This isn't the place for someone like him. Without thinking, Trump's words slipped out, harsh and biting. What's wrong with this guy? Doesn't he know this is a rally for real Americans? His voice rang out over the crowd, cutting through the chants and cheers. The words hung in the air, and the crowd fell silent, a collective gasp rippling through them. Some looked at each other uncertainly, unsure how to react, while others chuckled awkwardly. Trump, however, didn't seem to notice the tension in the air. He continued his speech, focusing on his message, his plans, and his vision for the country, unaware that his careless remark had already struck a painful chord. The elderly man stood at the edge of the crowd, his eyes weary but piercing through the chaos around him. Owen Thomas Edgar, a Vietnam War veteran, had long ago come to terms with his place in society. He had fought in one of America's bloodiest wars, but now, at the age of 79, he was a forgotten figure. What's left for me, he thought, his heart heavy with years of sacrifices that no one seemed to acknowledge anymore. His days were spent in quiet solitude, far removed from the fanfare of political campaigns. He didn't expect recognition, but hearing the words from Trump, real Americans, sent a jolt of pain through him. He had been there, in the thick of it, doing his part when his country called. And now, here he was, discarded and insulted by the very person who claimed to honor the sacrifice of veterans. Trump, lost in the rally's momentum, didn't notice the discomfort his words caused. The applause grew louder, but the veteran's heart ached with the sting of disrespect. This wasn't just an insult, it was a disregard for his service and for all who had sacrificed. For a brief moment, Trump's voice wavered, but he quickly regained his composure, pushing the image of the elderly man out of his mind. His job was to energize the crowd, to stay on message. There was no time for reflection. The rally was moving forward, and so was Trump. As the rally wound down, the man remained unnoticed, but the day would never be the same for him. Owen didn't care for the spotlight, didn't care for grand speeches or promises. He simply wanted to be seen, wanted his service to be acknowledged, not in a token way, but with the respect it deserved. Trump, unaware of the impact of his words, unknowingly set in motion a journey that would force him to confront his actions and his understanding of those he represented. The elderly man, standing quietly in the background, had a story that would soon remind Trump and the nation that true heroes don't always stand at the front. They often wait to be seen. After the rally, Trump's team continued with their usual operations, gathering feedback, analyzing poll numbers, and preparing for the next event. But it was when one of his aides came to him with a serious look on his face that Trump understood the magnitude of what had happened. "Sir, we've got a situation. The man you insulted, he's not just any random person. His name is Owen Thomas Edgar, and he's a 79-year-old Vietnam War veteran." The words hit Trump like a punch to the gut. His heart raced, and he felt the color drain from his face. Owen Thomas Edgar was not just any man. He was a veteran who had fought for his country during one of the most brutal wars in American history. Trump had insulted a man who had faced unimaginable hardships, who had seen the worst of humanity, and who had fought for the freedoms that Trump so often spoke about. Trump's mind reeled as he tried to process what he had just heard. How could I have been so blind? He had dismissed the man in front of him, someone who had already given so much. Trump stood in stunned silence. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The reality of what he had done began to sink in. He had not just offended a random stranger. He had insulted a man who had sacrificed his youth and health for his country. The guilt overwhelmed him. What have I done? The thought of hurting a man like Owen was unbearable. How could he have been so careless? Trump thought about all the veterans he had met throughout his career, men and women who had risked everything to defend the nation. And now, here was a man who had served with honor, a man who had endured the horrors of war, now being mocked by the very person who claimed to be a champion for the people. Trump's chest tightened as the weight of his words settled in. This wasn't just an insult, it was a failure to honor a hero. The guilt gnawed at him. The hours passed slowly, but the image of the elderly veteran standing alone in the crowd never left Trump's mind. The quiet sadness in Owen's eyes haunted him. How could I have missed it? Trump thought. Why didn't I see it sooner? Trump knew he had to make it right. He had made countless public apologies in the past, but this was different. This wasn't just about saving face. This wasn't just about optics. This was about righting a wrong, about acknowledging the service of someone who deserved far more than he had received. Trump knew that words alone wouldn't suffice. He had to act, and he had to do so in a way that showed the depth of his regret. Without hesitation, Trump's team began working behind the scenes to locate Owen Thomas Edgar. It took some time, but eventually they found him. The veteran was living in relative obscurity, his days spent quietly in the home he had made after returning from the war. He had few belongings, but his pride and dignity remained intact. He had never expected recognition or accolades. He had simply done his duty. Trump reached out to Owen personally, offering an apology that went beyond the superficial. But he knew that words alone would not be enough. He wanted to publicly honor the veteran, to show the world that he recognized his mistake and that he was willing to make amends. He invited Owen to join him at the next rally, a gesture that would not only apologize for the insult, but would also celebrate the man's life and sacrifice. At the rally, when Owen stepped onto the stage beside Trump, the atmosphere shifted. The crowd, initially unsure of what was happening, watched in stunned silence as Trump introduced the veteran with a sense of gravitas. "Ladies and gentlemen," Trump began, his voice carrying across the arena, "I want to introduce you to a true American hero. This is Owen Thomas Edgar, a man who served our country with honor in the Vietnam War, a man who gave up his youth, his health, and his peace of mind so that we could live in a free nation." The crowd, initially quiet, began to stir. Trump turned to Owen, his voice softening as he spoke from the heart. "Owen, I made a mistake. I insulted you in front of thousands of people, and for that, I am truly sorry. You deserve nothing but respect. You are a hero, and I am proud to stand beside you today." As Trump finished speaking, Owen's eyes welled with tears, a gesture of unexpected recognition. The audience, moved by the sincerity of the apology, erupted into applause. This moment was more than just an apology. It was a tribute to the sacrifice of countless veterans who often went unnoticed. The rally became a pivotal moment, not just for Trump's campaign, but for the nation. The image of Trump and Owen together symbolized the importance of honoring those who had fought for freedom. Trump, deeply moved by conversations with veterans, realized the need for real change in the treatment of military personnel. In the weeks that followed, Trump's public apology resonated across the country. It was a moment of redemption, reminding the nation of the value of recognizing those who gave so much. Owen, once a forgotten hero, now found pride in being seen for his sacrifice. For the nation, this story of humility and respect became a legacy, inspiring future generations to honor heroes in all their forms. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartfelt narratives.